Hey there, we are back. Rhino was on at 2 o'clock with the King's Court. I did my show at 5 o'clock Pacific, and here we are again at 8 o'clock. And the big news today involves Devin Carter of the Kings, their first-round pick, taken 13th overall. He had shoulder surgery, and it is exactly what we were fearing, and that is a long rehab process ahead of him in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 months with a torn labrum. Rhino, he will not even be evaluated until January, and so I think best case scenario is post All-Star break.
I think you're spot on, Grant. Reevaluated's the key in 6 months. And post All-Star break, that does not leave you a lot of time, Grant, to integrate or the team a lot of time to make any moves because you don't know what you can count on.
All right. I said this during my show, and just flat out tell me if you agree or disagree. The Kings knew that Carter had a shoulder injury. I don't believe there's any way that they knew the severity of the shoulder injury. Also, they are limited to what is provided to them by his camp, meaning his agent and et cetera. Okay. They don't have the ability to bring a player in and have their doctors go over them carte blanche and do whatever they want. That's not how that works. Okay. So have the Kings known that Carter had a serious injury? Not necessarily, but I think that this whole, if I can use the word camouflaging of an injury before the draft, needs to be explored somewhat by the NBA. I just think this is not a good look for either the NBA or the Kings.
Yeah, Grant, it's tough because these guys know their bodies better than anybody else, and it takes you to step up and say something if you think something's wrong. But teams aren't sharing very much information either that time
Correct.
of year either.
Correct.
So you do have to look at that because you look at Nikola Topic, right? He disclosed that he had a partially torn ACL, yet he was still picked one pick ahead of Devin. So what does the NBA do to look at that, or what can you do, Napes?
All right, let's talk about what Monty McNair knew and what he didn't know, because there's no doubt in my mind that Monty and the Kings, they didn't know the severity of the injury. And you've been working to get the sound from Monty McNair. So why don't you take us through the timetable and we can actually listen to what he said.
Yeah, absolutely. So post first round press conference, Monty speaking was not asked about the injury. Here's what he had to say when speaking about Devin.
Has been dealing with a shoulder injury. We've been in contact with his group, so we'll get him in here, evaluate that part of it, and you know, the long term is not an issue for him. But
so it's interesting, Napes, that he says the long term is not an issue there. Then he was pressed a little bit more about Devin's availability, possibly for the California Classic and Summer League. Here's what he had to say.
Do you know about the shoulder injury? You kind of mentioned it.
So we know he's dealing with one. I think we got to get him in here and get with our doctors and just see what it is. But you know, what we get through the draft process, our docs are confident. We've been in touch with this team. We're confident it's not a long-term issue, but we're not sure where it'll be.
Do you is it enough, you know, at this point that he might not play Summer League? Like, is it?
Yeah, too soon. Okay. Too soon. Yeah.
So, Napes, as I listen to that audio, it seems to confirm what we kind of think. The Kings knew something was up, but weren't completely sure. Seemed a little wishy-washy.
Not only were they not sure, they did not think it was going to be long-term. This is long-term. They didn't think that he was going to need shoulder surgery. They didn't think that he had a injury such as a torn labrum. There's no question that they didn't know. I mean, we just had Monty McNair's sound. Great job by putting that together, by the way. I mean, there's no gray area there. They didn't know. They flat out did not know.
It's a bad beat. It's a bad break for a team that was already a little bit behind the curve when it came to this Western Conference. It was either trade the pick or you need an impact player. And now, right now, for the first half of the season, you have no player in that position.
Well, if you're asking me, if they knew what they know now, they would have traded the pick. I really believe that. I believe that they would have made a trade. And I said this on my show earlier, we may be sitting here a year from now talking about, boy, we can't wait to see Devin Carter play because in the last 20 games, boy, did he look good. And boy, you can see he's got a bright future and no one's going to really care at that point. But it could also go the other way. Again, I don't believe the Kings would have selected Devin Carter if they knew that this was going to be a long-term deal. And make no mistake about it, this is a long-term deal. This is a Kevin Huerter type of an injury. It's a full 6 to 8 months, okay?
Yeah, the only saving grace is it is not a shooting shoulder, and it's a lower body injury. You can stay in shape. You can't stay in basketball shape. You got to get in the court for that. But certainly, it doesn't give you much time to play with, even if you want to integrate him into the G League, Grant.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. So I'm almost looking at this, maybe it's a little premature, as a wasted rookie year for
Yes.
Devin Carter.
You almost have to look at it as a redshirt year. And
Right.
to your point, the position that a lot of people still talking about, the forward position, forward center that needs to be addressed, the Kings were really high on Tristan Da Silva. Hit
Yes.
many of those same marks that they were looking for.
Yep.
And with the logjam of guards that the Kings had when Devin was drafted, that one might come back to bite you. But again, you don't know until a couple of years down the road.
What's done is done, and now Monty McNair is going to have to add on to this roster. Okay, he's going to
No
have
doubt.
to add on. We already knew he was going to have to add on. The question is, does he need to do a little bit more now, knowing full well that he's not going to have Carter until best case scenario, probably February? We're going to find out. Again, it's only July 11th, so they still have time to make moves.
Yep, they can still make moves, but even the players they have, Grant, last night, Keon Ellis, 6 turnovers against the Warriors Summer League team that's in the California Classic, and that's a guy that's immediately going to come to mind that's going to get some of these minutes that Devin will not have.
I didn't even see that. He had 6 turnovers?
6 turnovers, yes. Got to clean that
That's
up.
not good. Well, the situation is the DeMar DeRozan trade made the Kings better. I don't think anybody would dispute that. But you were counting on Carter to be that quote-unquote defensive dog, okay, now that you don't have Mitchell. And they were very high on him, and now he's out of the picture. I think if you're Mike Brown, you got to consider him out of the picture for the whole year. I mean, if you're entering the season and you're the head coach, you have to enter the season as if you're not going to have him.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to that point, depending on what's going on with the season, you got to cross that road and make that decision. Is it even smart to bring him into the fold at
Right.
the All-Star break, depending where the Kings stand?
Okay, so I had a conversation with Dirk, a caller on my 5 o'clock show, and he was talking about McLaughlin from Minnesota.
Yes.
And he was talking about all of the great things he's heard about him. And I said, listen, you can hear all you want about him, how he was a fan favorite and he was this and that. The reality is he played very little for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, maybe he needs a change of scenery. He was telling me how good his defense is. And I'm like, well, his defense wasn't as good as you think it was because he had 25 DNPs last year from a coach's decision. That doesn't mean he can't play, okay? But I think that we need to be very careful that we just assume that he's going to come in here and be the next Davion Mitchell type player. I wouldn't go that far. I think, it's about seeing it before you believe it.
Yeah, it's a value pickup, right? If you get something more out of him than what he's shown thus far in the league, then great for Monty. And for the Kings, that being said, he played behind Mike Conley, Grant. And I know Minnesota was good, but there still wasn't enough minutes there to get him on the floor. His 3-point numbers look good on paper, 47%, but he only shot 93 for the season.
How's that any different than Davion Mitchell playing behind De'Aaron Fox?
It's really not, to be honest with you. I mean, Davion found a way to wiggle in. That's my point. It's the fact that Mike Conley may have given you a bigger opportunity with a team in Minnesota where perimeter defense was actually the problem, not interior defense. And Minnesota still did not use him as much, as you said, 25 games, DNPs.
And Conley missed a lot of action too for Minnesota. Again,
Correct.
I don't know anything about this kid, so I'm not going to sit here and criticize him. I'm just saying that in my experience of covering the NBA, there's a reason why somebody doesn't play very much when they're in their 4th and 5th year in the league. There's a reason why. If a player is good and can help your team, a coach finds a way to get that player on the floor. That's the only point I'm making. I'm not saying that he can't play. I'm not saying that he can't help Sacramento. My experience, though, is if a player is able to help a team, that a coach will find a way to get that player on the court and part of the rotation. That didn't happen with this young man.
No, it didn't, but it very well could happen here in Sacramento, depending on what happens, figuring that everybody still stays healthy throughout the summer and in the season.
Again, there will be other moves made before now and the beginning of the season. I'm going to go back to Devin Carter.
Yeah.
There's no way the Kings knew that he had this severe of an injury. You just heard from Monty McNair. He didn't know it.
No.
It's going to be very interesting to hear what Monty McNair says in his next media availability.
Why? I don't think it really matters.
Well, I want to know I would like to know if there's some foul play going on here. I would like to know if they were being deceitful, the Carter camp. I would like to know if they were surprised, the Carter camp, at the diagnosis of a torn labrum. I want to know these things. I really do.
Yeah, and we're not talking about an agent that's new to the game. He represents Luka amongst other popular players, so he's very familiar with how things work. But if he's playing within the rules, is that a Devin Carter problem or an NBA problem?
It's an NBA problem.
Certainly.
It's an NBA problem. That's what we're dealing with. It's an NBA problem.
And how do you fix that? It's where does the competitive edge meet?
There has to be harsh penalties that are levied at players if they do not disclose a full extent of an injury when they know that they had. Now, you were telling me that, correct me if I'm wrong here, that Devin Carter didn't go see the Kings doctors until what? Just a few days ago on July 2nd, last week?
No, as of 7/2, he still had not seen the Kings doctors. And I understand he wasn't under contract yet, but
that's why.
That might be part of the issue that you got to look at if you're the NBA. Right?
100%. There's no way he was going to go see a Sacramento Kings doctor until he had his name on the contract.
Exactly right. Get your money, get your bag, which doesn't make sense to a degree because it's a lottery pick, right? It's not going to change anything. It is a set scale of what you were making over those 4 years.
That's correct. And the Kings would have still signed him. It's not like they would have said, gee, we're going to release you. But still, to be sure, you're going to wait a couple of extra days.
No doubt. And on top of that, the Davion Mitchell situation, right? Do you look at a different player? Do you offer somebody else to Toronto? Because Davion becomes a much more valuable piece without Devin Carter being able to play right now.
Okay, so here's the other issue that I want to go back to. I don't know when the injury occurred in camp workouts. I don't know what the date was. Let's just say, let's pick a random date of June 5th, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Players have had torn labrums in all sports before. Football is a very common injury, by the way, particularly on defensive linemen and players that make tackles. Their torn labrums are not that uncommon. And from what limited research I have been able to do, they almost always are surgically repaired to a point where you don't have a problem anymore. Okay?
Correct.
So here's the other part of this. It is now the 11th of July, right?
Yep.
If you could have diagnosed that on June 5th or June 6th and knew that you had a torn labrum and have surgery a day or two later, now all of a sudden you might be able to come back around the first of the year as opposed to after the All-Star break. And the downside to that is when maybe you fall a little bit in the draft. But again, this is not an injury that is supposed to be chronic. Do you understand where I'm going with this? Now you all of a sudden, and again, I don't know what day he suffered the shoulder injury. I don't have that information. I'm just throwing a random number. You know, we're talking about a 6-week difference.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The more time or the sooner you do it is more beneficial for the player. He did a lot of pre-draft workouts. He awed guys in San Antonio. I know LA was high on him. And Grant, the other side of that is maybe you get a little tweak at the combine, and instead of getting it looked at, it gets worse and worse because labrums can heal without surgery. It's typically surgical for an athlete, but PT can also do the trick.
Kevin Huerter went through the same thing.
Yep. And as you said, you do make a full recovery. In fact, if you have issues with your shoulder, it stabilizes it. So it's not something that should usually repeat in that same area.
Well, what's done is done. And now the question is, where do you do going forward? But in the meantime, it's summer and there is nothing really going on. I mean, there's summer league, but for all intents and purposes, There's nothing going on. I'm very well aware of the Olympics, but I would like to get some more information on this. And when I mean I want to hear from the particulars here. I think that we all, as fans, deserve a timetable and an explanation of how this all went down, and it better make sense.
Yeah,
Because right now it doesn't make sense.
And if that's the case, where it came from Devin's camp or nothing came from Devin's camp, how do the Kings approach that, right? You don't want to fracture a relationship too early, but what's the right push? Do you push the agent? Do you put the pressure on them? Do you address the NBA? How do you handle it, Nibs?
Well, here's the other part. Was Devin Carter lying?
Correct. You don't know. Devin Carter knows that.
Yep.
We don't.
It's not a good start to an NBA career if you're being deceitful, that's for sure.
No, and character-wise, from everybody, plenty of people that covered him in Providence has been on the airwaves around here. He's a character guy, comes from an NBA family, so you would think, you would think that would not be the issue. I hope this is a case of a player thinking I tweaked something, and it was much worse than anybody expected.
I know his dad. I was with him, and I have nothing but great things to say. I don't have any. I'm bringing up what ifs. I'm bringing up questions that need to be asked.
Well, and then the flip side too, I was looking back at the draft, right? Yeah. Minnesota trades up to get Rob Dillingham from the Spurs, and that was kind of an interesting one to me. I know that Devin was high on their board. They take Stephon Castle earlier in the lottery, so there was only a couple guards taken before him, so he really didn't fall significantly.
That's true. That's very true. He did not. And again, we talk about a lot of what if scenarios. There's that, and then there's the reality. The reality is he's not playing anytime soon. So Mike Brown now knows that and can plan accordingly and go from there. Yeah,
it does at least solidify the rotation a little bit more, whatever Mike Brown decides on, because that was a problem last year, Grant. As much as you change it for matchups, it seemed to never be that consistent.
I want to talk to you about Bennett's Restaurants, Sacramento, Roseville, and the West Side Grill in Rockland. Don't forget about their happy hour, Sips and Taste, every day from 2 to 6. Prime seafood and steak at Bennett's. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com, make a reservation, and more. They have a phenomenal menu. Again, prime seafood and steak. Don't forget about their weekend brunch. Get down there this weekend and enjoy their weekend brunch and the weekend prime rib. We're also brought to you by New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you for all of your plumbing needs and repairs. Just go to SACServicePlumbing.com or call the number on your screen. New Works Plumbing, available around the clock 24/7. They've got a fix for you. SACServicePlumbing.com.
I hope you're taking notes, everybody. Did you hear that? All of your plumbing needs, not some, all. So
you know that firsthand.
I do. They were out at our house not too long ago. They fixed what was broken and fixed stuff that would have been broken in a couple of years. So good on them. Awesome having them here. We bring in fact, if you want to get involved in the show, I'll put the link in the chat for you to call. We'll bring up our man Con Dog tonight. Welcome to the show.
Whoa, thank you for having me again today, Ryan.
You are welcome.
But this Devin Carter thing, there's a lot of rookies that, came out with known injuries. Then, Michael Porter Jr. is one where, his draft stock fell tremendously with that back injury that he received, because he was projected, the top 1 or 2 at that time. And that back
the Kings would have taken him second overall had he not had a back issue. They would have taken him number 2.
Yeah, he was, one of the top guys out of high school, and he fell all the way to Denver's lap, and because they were in a position to take that risk on a guy with that serious of a back injury.
That's correct.
They were just in a perfect position where it wasn't going to hurt them if he failed, but if he reaches somewhat of his potential, then we're going to be amazing.
100% correct. You were spot on. Well said.
I think we got to be careful, though. Devin Carter isn't Michael Porter Jr.
No.
He's not Joel Embiid, some of those guys. But, there was risk there. He only played 1 game in college, too.
Yeah, there's been a lot of guys, like that. Markelle Fultz, he came into the league with a motorcycle injury, I believe. And the Sixers took a chance on that one too, after they took a chance on Embiid too. So that didn't turn out so well for them, and they shipped him to Orlando.
Again, I think what's important here is this type of an injury, once it's healed, it's fully healed and it's good as new. And Devin Carter could still have a nice impact on this franchise moving forward. But it is long-term. Monty McNair said twice they don't think it's long-term, that it's not long-term. Well, it is long-term. 6 to 8 months is long-term.
That's a long time, man. That's a very long time. I've been through a couple long-term injuries myself. Rehab and stuff after the cert. You got a long way. And anything that requires going under the knife like that.
Not good. Thank you, buddy.
Good at all.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Condog. Grant,
Here's a message saying, an injured Carter versus a healthy Dalton Connect. I think Dalton Connect was on the Kings' radar, but he's a different type of player completely than what they drafted in Carter.
Much different. Fits the offensive side of the ball much more than the defensive side.
Yep. But now that you have DeMar DeRozan, well,
you understand why they probably he was part of their plan. Monty talked about in that same press conference, game planning different scenarios for the draft and free agency.
Not everyone is perfect on draft day. There's always mistakes made. Kings fans know that better than anybody.
Oh boy.
But this is a different type of a situation than we've encountered.
It's the worst kind of break. It's a Sacramento break. But the more that I'm sitting here thinking about what you said to open the show about the process in the NBA, you're making $1 million investments, Grant. If I want to go buy a car, I've got a state law that allows me to return it within 3 days if it's a lemon.
Yep.
It's a problem. That's a problem.
Yep. And you also have, again, without trying to promote a company, right, a Carfax. So you have the complete history of everything that's happened to that car, whether it's been in an accident, whether it's been, the other aspect of this whole thing is everyone in the league knew that Carter was dealing with some type of a shoulder injury. It was disclosed. All right. Monty McNair knew that. Every general manager in the league knew that. Well, in my opinion, once a draftee has an injury, I believe that it's up to the league to do due diligence to diagnose that injury so people know what they're dealing with. I think you use the analogy of buying a car, which is an excellent one. If you can buy a car that's been in an accident, but it has to be disclosed. You buy an automobile, exactly. It says, hey, this car was involved in a bad accident 3 years ago and it had this done, this, but it's disclosed. So to me, once a player discloses that they have an injury, then to me, I believe that the league should have protocol to have their doctors, it can be, league doctors, to do a complete
independent
examination and imaging. Let's not forget the word imaging and imaging so that everyone knows what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, it goes out to every single team in the draft, no doubt. But we're also talking about the same league that does not take their injury reporting seriously.
Exactly.
I mean, how many times this last season were we like, what's going on? Compared to the NFL, where they will come down on you if you are not reporting accurately.
100% agree. You are spot on. So maybe the league starts to do things a little bit differently now. But when you have a lottery pick that has a torn labrum before the draft and no one knows about it, that's bad for the league, in my opinion.
It is indeed. Well, you also don't want an environment where a potential lottery pick or somebody that's going to be drafted is afraid to come forward and say, I have an issue. That's a problem in itself.
There are a lot of issues that have to be examined here. Right now, the Kings are left holding an empty bag until probably February or March, or as you said, they may just redshirt him.
I probably think in redshirt, depending on how it goes. But again, this was a team behind the eight ball. One of Monty McNair's trademarks is staying fluid, liquidity, being able to move. Well, now if you got Devin Carter on the shelf and it comes to trade deadline, certain things aren't working out. That comes into play. All
right, here's the other issue. Let's throw a date out that you used a little while ago of March 1st. We could be off by a couple weeks. Let's just
Yeah.
say that date for sake of conversation. Barring injuries, the Kings are going to be in the playoff hunt, and who knows where they're going to be, but they're probably going to be right in the middle of things. So now you're going to bring a player back onto the floor that has zero NBA experience, zero preseason action. Okay. Yeah, you could take him into the G League and have him play some games down there, but that's not the same.
Not the same.
And now you're going to try to indoctrinate him onto a team that already has a set rotation. You know how Mike Brown is with these things.
Indeed.
Has momentum, is fighting where every game is important. Do you really have the affordability to even put him on the floor? I'm saying no. I don't think you do.
Yeah, based off of last year, I would say no as well. And
Right.
looking at this Western Conference, it's only better. So I think the realistic expectation, how many times with Trey Lyles, how many times Malik Monk, where it was, will be reevaluated in 2 weeks, and it ended up being another 2 weeks. Speaking of Trey Lyles, another 3 weeks, Sasha Vezenkov, same thing. So you kind of have to, Grant, I would think, set a hard date. If reevaluations go to a certain point, write it off, let him get his work in, be ready to go the next year.
He won't even have any experience of how the NBA game is called from a hands-on experience, which is one of the real benefits that I've always looked at in Summer League. You have NBA officials, and they call the game the way they call an NBA game.
Great point.
And that takes a while. And I've always felt that's one of the real benefits of not only Summer League, but preseason, albeit you only have 4 games right now or 5 games. But those are valuable games for rookies because they get a real feel of how the game is called. He won't even have that.
Excellent point. Also, where you build some confidence as well, and even build relationships with some of the referees. Wonderfully done there. We go back to the phones. We bring in Gammon. Welcome on tonight.
Gammon, great to have you back on. I really enjoy your phone. Whoa, we lost him already. He'll be back.
I guess he didn't. I guess he didn't want to be back, Dapes. Wrong show.
He'll be back. I can guarantee he'll be back. But so the situation is now, what do you do? Who's going to be that on-ball defender as we have Gammon come back in? Gammon, great to have you. Great to have you joining us again. How are you? What happened to that beautiful background, buddy, on your little green screen?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Let me go ahead.
There we go.
Put that back.
I like that background. Sharp. How are you?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. How about yourselves?
Good.
Excellent.
Really enjoyed having you on yesterday. We got a lot of positive feedback from you being on the show. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Yeah, because if it wasn't, I would have to just hide in my house for almost like. Yeah. No, I'm just excited to be here. I hear everything that you guys are saying, and you guys are kind of making a lot of sense on a lot of points. Question I have for you guys is where do you see the Kings finishing this season? Because I know a lot of people they're comfortable with saying the 5th seed, but do you think it's possible we could go any higher than that?
Well, I can't answer that question until I know what the Kings' final roster is going to look like, and I don't know if anyone right now could tell you what the Kings' roster is going to look like because they still have a couple of roster spots available. But based on the way the roster looks right now, I think they could go as high as 4.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think right now, as it sits, I'm comfortable at about 6.
And when for you, Grant, when you say 4, I'm going to assume that you're thinking that we win the Pacific, and then
yes,
and then for Ryan, you saying 6. Are you thinking it's because you think that the Suns roster right now is a better roster than what we currently have in place at this moment?
No, I'm thinking more of your Memphises that are going to be back in the mix. Ja Morant, what that situation's going to look like. Also, I don't think San Antonio's going to be up there, but Houston, who knows? They beat the Kings 4 times last year, and they're looking to improve and win now.
Well, let me give you my reason. It doesn't really matter whether you win the division or not, but I am predicting that Denver's going to take a step back. And I think with some of the players that they've lost, and I know that they're also made a few additions, but I think that they've lost some real key pieces in the last 2 years. And Jamal Murray has not shown that he's able to stay healthy. So I could see the Kings battling Denver for that 4th spot. I think Minnesota's clearly better than Sacramento. Yep. I think Oklahoma City is better, and I think Dallas is better. And then after that, I think it's up for grabs. A team that no one's really talking about right now that they need to be talking about is Memphis. I could see Memphis being right in the hunt for that spot as well.
That's interesting. I guess Ja Morant is really that guy, especially since they lost their wing, their small forward to a team like Houston, which is pretty surprising. But yeah, I think that's crazy.
Well, if Zach Edey can play effectively with Jaren Jackson to go with Morant, Desmond Bane, and Marcus Smart, they've got a lot of talent, and they also have something that the Kings don't have. They have toughness, and that's something that the Kings are lacking right now. So I would not discount Memphis. I don't know about Phoenix yet. I'm not sold on them. I don't think the Warriors are going to be there. The Clippers, to me, have a completely different makeup, but I can't trust the team with James Harden. The Lakers, no, in my opinion. I think the Kings, if they stay healthy, will be right in that 4, 5, 6 mix.
So my thing is, I'm not sold on Zach Edey as I think a lot of like the online reports are. I think it really works in college because he just has all the natural skill sets that are just going to just allow him to blow other kids away. Because he's going up against kids who are getting like a full ride scholarship, and they're really trying to get that 5-6 years in there in college, but they're not going into the NBA. But in the NBA, it's so fast paced. I don't think Zach Edey can run the floor with a guy like Ja Morant. So I really see him really just being kind of like a 20, 27 minute, per game kind of player. I just don't think he has that kind of leg speed to kind of get up and down the floor to really just make an impact all game long, especially if a team is just drilling threes. I think that keeps him off the floor. Was just always kind of my gut feeling, kind of watching college basketball and then kind of guesstimating how that would transfer over to the NBA. I just don't think he doesn't have that lateral quickness or that agility. It's okay to be kind of stiff. Brad Miller was stiff, but Brad Miller could really run down, set some incredible picks, right, and free up some. And I just don't really see a lot of that in Zach Edey's kind of repertoire. It was my kind of thinking.
So, Gammon, I don't disagree about his abilities to run the floor. He's not going to be Blake Griffin or DeAndre Jordan, but look at the two teams that were in the Western Conference Finals. They both play two bigs, and Zach Edey has gotten better every single year in college, playing against some elite competition, and he's physical. So he's going to be able to D up and stop a lot of those guys, or at least be a nuisance for some of them in Minnesota, in Dallas. And then on top of that, look at how the game was officiated the second half of the season. Things really slowed down. It got more physical. Adam Silver does not like the three-point era. So when it comes to a half-court matchup, Zach Edey is a great guy to have on that side of the court for a team like Memphis.
No question. Yeah, I definitely think that was a really good pickup for a team like Memphis. My biggest thing was, again, I just don't see him being a guy where you look at the score sheet and you're like, wow, Edey played 39 minutes that game. I just don't see that happening, which is really, I like the pick that the 49ers, I'm sorry, Sacramento Kings picked with that guard in mind. I just think that gives us a lot more kind of duality.
But not this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be out until probably around March. So, and then at that point, is it too late for him to be brought in the middle of everything with no summer league, no preseason? We're talking 6 to 8 months after his shoulder surgery today. So I wouldn't count on him this year. I'm not saying I wouldn't count on him at all in the picture of the Kings' future, but I wouldn't count on him this year.
I think so. I think things are different for different people, right? And so we're talking about that this team is lacking toughness. Well, this guy that we just drafted has toughness in spades, right? Like he is an absolute. He's kind of got that little bit of that Ron Artest, kind of that dog in him, as far as just chasing the ball all over the place.
He loves defense. Yeah.
He just gets after it, and that's something we don't have. So I could see him kind of being that fill-in kind of point guard. I know a lot of people are trying to put him in at the shooting guard, and then a lot of people are trying to say like, well, his wingspan is really big, so he might be able to guard, small forwards, and not the small forwards in the NBA are just too big, too fast, too athletic nowadays. But I could see him getting some hustle time minutes for sure, coming in off the bench, just doing what he does well. I don't think that his shot's going to be there, Grant, especially with the shoulder surgery. So I don't think he's going to have the rhythm on offense, but yeah, to just be in there and get things a little messy.
He might, but what happens if you're playing well and the Kings are on a roll and they're fighting for a fourth spot or a fifth spot or a sixth spot? If you're Mike Brown, now you're going to take someone that has zero NBA experience with zero preseason games, zero everything, and you're going to try to put him in the middle of a playoff push. I mean, I'm not so sure that's going to happen, Gammon.
It may or may not. Just the only reason why I'm kind of sold on him a little bit is just because he has that work ethic and then that fight, and it's really hard to keep human beings out of there, right? Like, and so I think he'll do that. The other thing too that I'm kind of worried about is that, hey, look, DeRozan is getting older, and I think that it's fantastic, the streak that he's had, playing 79 plus games for however many seasons, logging in all those minutes on 35-year-old legs, right? But we saw it last year. Herter, Malik Monk, they were injured going into the playoffs. We were simply running out of gas. Scenario.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. I think that Mike Brown right now is entering this season, and the plans are in his mind that he's not going to have Devin Carter. If he has him and he can contribute, then it's a bonus. But right now, if I'm the coach and I'm formulating my rotation based on what my roster looks like today and my ideas for training camp and everything else, right now I'm planning on coaching the team without that kid, and I'll wait until next year. If that changes, fine, that's good. But that's the way I'm approaching the season.
Absolutely, and that makes perfect sense. A question for both of you. So we do need some. I think we need like a power forward or something of that effect, right? Have you guys heard? Because I know you guys are well connected within the community. Have you guys heard of any kind of like power forward or like a really big small forward that's over there in the G League or Summer League that's just really been tearing it up? That maybe
no. You don't think that way. You're not getting a player to fit that mold right now that's in the Summer League or the G League. It's not happening.
Okay. Well, at least I can tick that one off of my box. Yeah.
You could get a player that can make a roster. I mean, we saw it last year, but in terms of the type of player you're talking about, no, I think that's unrealistic. I think the player that we're talking about is currently on an NBA roster elsewhere.
And what do you think that missing piece, if you were to kind of talk about the makeup is of that player, what are they?
Ryan, what do you think?
I think the makeup to me is somebody that can obviously guard multiple positions at the forward, also play a little bit of small ball center, but can also stretch the floor. And I know that's asking a lot of a guy, but the best in the league at playing that role make their teams that much better. So they come at a cost. A guy like I hate to throw this name out there because I don't want to trade with Danny Ainge, but like a John Collins type, somebody along those lines, I think really could be a benefit to this team, Gammon.
Okay. And if we did acquire a player like that, what does that do for some of our young talent on this team that we're probably going to re-sign? And I think we kind of know who I'm alluding to.
The only player you're going to re-sign right now without any degree of certainty, without any degree of hesitation, is Keegan Murray. You're keeping him unless he's part of a trade. He's part of your future. Everyone else, listen, Gammon, you know this. You played basketball, and so you know this. You win and lose with your top 8 guys. Right. You don't win and lose with your, 11th, 12th, and 13th men on an NBA roster. Can they help you win a game during the season? Yes, but that's not who you win with. You win with your top 8 to 9 guys. So I'm not really worried about that. Keegan Murray is the only guy on the front line that is going to get a new contract. Nobody else on that team is getting one right now because they've already got their deals done.
Yeah. Right. And that was kind of my big fear, is especially with the way they kind of did the structuring with the in regards to the salary cap for the NBA. And so I'm just thinking, like, we want that amazing guy to come in, right, and maybe make that big trade, sacrifice some assets, but that's going to come at a cost, like you were saying, Ryan, of having to pay him. And then I start to think, what money will we have left over for a guy?
Well,
Like
the
Keegan?
salary cap's going to be going way up every year now. So I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Okay.
As of right now, Gammon, you've got about $5 million to play with, which was $5 million more than they estimated the Kings would have at this point. So if you trade a Herter, that's about 21. But if it's somebody that's your player, you can go over the cap for them.
Yep.
Okay. Great.
Gammon, good stuff, man. Thank you very much. It's always good to have you on the show. We'll talk to you again soon.
Oh.
Appreciate him.
Thank you,
Thank
Gammon.
you.
And really quick, to Gammon's last point, if you brought a forward in like that, guess what? You get to slide Keegan to the 3, where a lot of people believe he belongs.
I didn't say I would never trade Murray, Drew. So you might want to get the wax out of your ears.
This happens every show. It's unreal, Grant.
There's nobody on the Kings that I wouldn't trade. I would trade every player on the Kings if I felt it was going to make me better. I hope that answers your question.
It's the mindset you got to have.
But on the front line, Sabonis, I mean, he was talking about contractually. The guy that's going to be due for money is Keegan Murray.
Correct. Yes, Keegan is coming up next.
Yeah, so I keep letting folks know this. The roster is still going to be different than it is today. There's going to be some additions to the roster, and so we have to wait and see what that is.
Yeah, a lot of time left. When Summer League starts, executives congregate, more conversations begin. So we've got plenty of time, Nibs.
All right. Again, if you want to get in on the program, you can just hit the link, and we will be happy to put you on. You can talk about not only the Kings and the NBA, but anything else that is going on in the world of sports. We're happy to do that. There's the link for you right there. Yeah, Fox is coming up, but I was talking about forwards and centers. The backcourt, yes, we know that De'Aaron Fox is coming up. Absolutely. All right, Einstein, you need to trade Murray. Mr. Einstein, Mr. Basketball, you know it all. Who are you trading him for? All right, there you go. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gammon. And again, we appreciate your service. He's in the Army, and we appreciate your service.
Thank you, Gammon, for your service.
Yep, absolutely.
Indeed. Hey, Drew, if you want to worry about how much runway we give people on this show, call the show, Drew. It's your second time around talking about runway.
Yep.
At least Gammon.
And well, here's
the show.
Yes. Go ahead.
Pick the phone up, Drew.
And Drew, when people know what they're talking about and they're good and they're conversational and they are, doing research, we let them go a lot longer because they bring value to the program. I'm not so sure that you would bring value to the program, but in all fairness, I've been wrong before and I could be wrong again. And maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe you would be just as good as Gammon or Jay or Condog and bring, maybe you would. I don't know. I could be wrong, but we won't find out until you get some balls to call the show.
Drew, come on, man. Make the call. Do it.
Can we talk about the fight that broke out yesterday in the soccer match between Uruguay and Colombia? Yeah, the players on Uruguay were concerned for the safety of their families based on the interviews that I kind of perused through on social media. It was to protect their families and their children, and in one case, a baby. So they were extremely nervous, and I thought it was very odd that it said it took almost a half hour for the police to show up in that situation. I find that hard to believe. And the player from Uruguay was saying, hey, we need to get this fixed. This can't happen in the future. There needs to be better security there. And he was very concerned about future matches.
Amen. Think about how much that's changed now, Grant, with social media and the internet, knowing what people's families look like. Back in the day, I know there was a section where the family sat at Arco Arena, and if you didn't know outside of that, you didn't know who was who. But to the NBA Finals, Kyrie Irving, they were carrying around a doll in Boston outside the Garden and basically beating it up in crowds. So if you're feeling threatened for your family, I kind of get that. Like you said, security's got to be better. That's not good. Not good at all.
Gammon's responded to Drew. I will support you positively if you call in. Not many of us Sacramento Kings fans, we have to stand together. Well, there are a lot of Kings fans, but yeah, you do need to stand together. I'm okay with you standing together, but I want to have him call. If he's going to talk like, big man online, Like, here we go. I said, who do you need to trade? We need to trade Murray for the Utah players they wanted. What players?
Players.
Be specific.
Think you could spell Larry? Drew, how
No.
do you spell Larry?
Just put his initials if you want.
Oh, my
Unbelievable.
goodness.
All right. Hey, while we wait for Drew to call, I will tell you about Sunrise Landing and the newest residential community in Calusa from Blazona Development. Now, all you need to do is go to calusasunrise.com. You can check out all of these beautiful models and more. Remember, no Mellorews, no homeowners at Sunrise Landing, and great location. It's adjacent from the Calusa Golf and Country Club. You have great access to the major arteries such as I-5, Highway 20, Highway 45. So it's a tremendous location in Calusa. And I'm hearing great things from people that have been up there to check out Sunrise Landing. And you can do the same thing by going to calusasunrise.com. That is calusasunrise.com, and check out Sunrise Landing. All right. So, all right. Sunrise Landing in the books. Thank you very much. And we move on and we talk more about what's going on in the NBA, the Kings, soccer, or the upcoming Olympics. The United States, they were praising their defense last night in their win against Canada.
Yeah, I would say Canada had a little part of just throwing the ball everywhere, but defense is good. That's the part that I worry about for this Olympic team as they head into Paris.
Yep, we'll see. They are the overwhelming favorite. I don't think there's any question about that. And so we will wait and see whether or not they can bring home the gold. I can't imagine them not bringing home the gold, but there are some really good teams out there. Serbia is very good.
Yep.
Canada's good. France is good. Spain is formidable. Australia is formidable. There's a lot of good basketball being played around the world.
Very well said. Very different styles of basketball played around the world too. By the way, for those that don't know, the 3-point line is about a foot further in for FIBA and Olympic play, which should benefit the USA team. But different basketball teams are together. We talked about this last year for much longer to grow chemistry than this team has been together.
Very true. So it's really going to be interesting to see how quickly this team can gel and go from there. The other issue is, will Kevin Durant be playing or not? He's still not able to get on the floor.
He doesn't look right to me, Grant. I don't know what it is. I was watching his interview. It just, something's off about him right now. And I can't put my finger on it.
Here's the other aspect. Why is he playing in the Olympics?
I have no idea. You can't play in the NBA. He can't get through a full season.
That's it. It makes no sense to me. All right? It makes no sense to me, because say whatever you want about representing your country. Your number one duty is to the team that has your contract. All right. And that is the Phoenix Suns. That's your primary, benefit. That's your priority. That's your number one priority. And you're hurt, and you've been hurt, and now you want to play international competition. To me, you ought to take the Kawhi Leonard route.
Yeah, it would be the better way to go. I'm sure Phoenix would have no problems with that, because I'm not convinced those three guys in Phoenix are going to be back together all season next year. So we go to our man, Jay. Welcome in tonight.
What's going on, fellas?
What's up?
Gentlemen. That's a really hot take right there, Grant. Very hot take.
Thank you, buddy.
Kawhi Leonard take. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm more Patriot than Tom Brady. So, I don't know if I agree 100% with that. Now, I'm optimistic, and I like to hear both sides. So I understand what you're saying when it comes to you're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars to play for the Clippers or the Lakers or whomever it may be. But at the same time, you have an opportunity to go and compete against the world, whoever the best in the world is around the country. In a way, I kind of look at it like, I don't want to say going to war, but it's a similar mentality when taking pride in your country and being honored with the opportunity.
It is a big honor. By the way, how about Gammon saying to Drew, he will cash app him $50 if you call in, and Drew said no.
Drew.
Anyway, Jay,
Yeah,
I mean,
man,
I
I'll
didn't.
take $50. No, I'm just messing.
But Jay, go ahead. I understand. Yes,
Yeah,
listen, it is
that's
a big
pretty much
honor
it.
to
Really,
represent your
just like
country. It's a big honor to be in the Olympics. I mean, there's nobody that's been in the Olympics that has said otherwise. It's a tremendous honor to represent your country. But when you're a professional athlete such as Kevin Durant and you're under contract and your priority is to the team that's paying your money, I have no problem with Kevin Durant playing in the Olympics if he's healthy. But he's already
Exactly.
I see what you're saying.
dealing with a groin issue.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, is it a groin now too, or
Calf.
calf?
Oh, I'm sorry, calf
I-
strain. Thank
I
you for
would, I
correcting me.
would, I
Yes, a
wouldn't have
calf
been
strain.
surprised.
And what do we know about calf strains? They can linger and linger
Oh,
and
boy.
linger.
Achilles? That Achilles, that's what they say, and he's already had that issue in the past, and that's actually how it started. There was a lot of feud on Twitter talking about, oh, he's been out with his calf strain or whatever for like 2 months before it actually snapped.
Yep.
And people say, he would say it felt like someone like kind of kicked me on the back of my leg at certain times. Those are signs to look out for when you're putting a lot of stress on that tendon. So, but no, I agree. I mean, with Kawhi, Kawhi is kind of like we know his body is like duct taped together at this point. So that I totally get Kawhi. But I mean, there's still players out there like you would think LeBron has never been hurt, but he's 40 years old. You know what I mean? Will he be able to go out and still perform? I mean, anything could happen out there.
Yeah,
And we've talked about
I
that too.
completely get you. But Grant Hill made the decision, who's the head of USA
Right.
basketball now, to send Kawhi Leonard home. And I'm thinking, if Kevin Durant can't get on the floor really soon, he's going to make that decision to get him home too. And then the
I
question is,
see.
who gets added onto the team? Is it Jaylen Brown?
I
Oh,
think
Lord.
that decision would have already been made before they take off for Abu Dhabi. I mean,
would
then
think
it's
so.
London and the Olympics.
You would think so. I mean, but that's why they have airplanes. If somebody gets hurt, you can have a player be in Abu Dhabi within 15 hours, 16 hours.
Yeah, I didn't think that's bringing up the Kevin Durant situation is definitely something I did not think about.
So
I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah, the Olympics is right around the corner, though.
It is.
Ryan's making a good point. You don't have a lot of time to be messing around right now.
They have to have some sort of list, Ryan, like that hey, if this guy goes, then we're gonna call this guy, or these guys are the front.
Well, of course, they have final.
Yeah.
They come out with a list of 30 that are going to be considered for USA basketball, work their way down. But it's funny because you listen to a lot of the national talking heads, and the consensus is if Kevin Durant can get on the court, he's the guy that's going to be the biggest problem for the rest of the world.
That is very true. Lead scorer in Olympic basketball history, and not by a slim margin. Yeah, it's by a good amount, and he's going to. I forgot what it was. I don't remember exactly, but I know this Olympics, this go around, he'll have the opportunity to break some sort of scoring record or something like that. So maybe
let's talk about the what if. Let's look ahead and talk about the what if. What if Durant plays and completely tears that calf, which is a career type of a situation at his age. Juncture of his career?
That's good for the Kings. I mean, I don't pray for anybody to get injured.
No, it would be good for a lot of the other teams in the West too. But I'm not a doctor. I don't have the information on Kevin Durant's calf strain, but I only know what I know. He hasn't even been able to get on the court yet.
I've heard, I think it was yesterday, he was shooting around.
Yeah, but he hasn't been able to practice, is what I mean.
Full, yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I can get somebody with a broken leg to shoot around.
Well, the thing is too, Tyronn Lue is on that staff.
Yes.
So I think that Kawhi Leonard situation is slightly different too. If
maybe, but Grant Hill at a press conference, it was very direct. They were in talks with the Clippers, but ultimately it was his decision. So, again, we'll see. I'm not going to get caught off in it. The reality is Durant right now is not able to play, and we'll see if he is able to help the team or not.
Yeah, I mean, if he can't play, there needs to be some type of time crunch, some type of timeline, because we want to get a player that can somewhat do what he does, because he's all perennial scoring type of guy of all time, most difficult guy to guard. I think Kobe Bryant said that he was one of the most difficult guys he's guarded ever. So
I think he used to be. I don't think he is anymore, but I
Well,
think
yeah.
that was true.
yeah, he lost some pep in his step
Yep.
after that Achilles went. But I mean, we got to get somebody who can replace some of that type of dynamic scoring. You know, there's not a lot of people that can do what he does, obviously. But I think we would have to replace him with a scorer. And you're right, like a Jaylen Brown would be nice. But if
You
we're
want
talking
Jaylen
about-
Brown so bad on that team, my man.
I wanted him 2 months ago, but I mean, you got 3 Celtics. Don't get me started on that one, Ryan. I'm trying to think of someone else right now because I could go on a tangent with that. But if we're talking about pure scoring, I mean, you got Donovan Mitchell. You know, you got Kyrie Irving. They're smaller, but we're talking about pure scoring right here. Jalen Brunson, someone who's these guys.
He's hurt.
Yeah,
Oh,
Brunson's
yeah.
hurt. He's not available.
Well, Donovan Mitchell, athletic. I mean, he's not the biggest guy, but he scored 70 points at 6'3". So if that doesn't
Wake me up when the Olympics are over in the basketball. I'm going to be watching the swimming. I'll be watching the track and field. I'll be watching a lot of the other events. Wake me up when the basketball competition is over, would you please?
I think that's the only event I'll watch is basketball. Oh, I told Grant the other day.
I won't watch.
I told Grant the other day, Rhino, I got a Team USA Stephen Curry jersey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good
so
for you.
I'll bring that on the podcast when I get it. It's not going to ship until when the Olympics start or whatever.
The Team USA has turned me off by the way they approach non-Olympic years. They've taken the enjoyment away from me, unlike all the other countries around the world who deal with non-Olympic years the same way they do Olympic years.
Yeah,
and they take it seriously. And as Ryan was saying, they have great rapport, chemistry, and it means something to represent your country in non-Olympic years, where it doesn't mean squat for the United States. It's, to me, a degree of arrogance and bravado, and it's turned me off. So I have no interest in watching USA basketball in the Olympics. I'm turned. The way they approach non-Olympic years has turned me off.
You know what, Grant?
Real men of genius.
Right there. Great
Well, to be
one
fair,
there, brother.
I'm still young, so I haven't watched many Olympics. You know, they're every 4 years, so I'm excited to see this one. And maybe when I get wise like Grant after a couple, decades, I'll probably feel the same way. All
right, here we go from Gammon, a $2 donation for the panel. What is your favorite Olympic event? Well, I got to tell you, in the Winter Olympics, my favorite event is the men's downhill. You get one crack at it and one crack only. And I love the men's downhill in the Winter Olympics. That is my favorite event.
Is that when they hop on that bobsled?
Huh?
Is that when they hop on that bobsled type of thing?
No, downhill skiing on 2 skis.
Oh, downhill skiing. Okay.
Yeah. That's my favorite event in the Winter Olympics. And I got to tell you, in the Summer Olympics, it's the 100-meter dash. I think that's a spectacular 9 seconds of competition or whatever it is.
Intense. It's so intense.
To determine who's the fastest man in the world. Yes. Those are my 2 favorite. What about you guys?
Jay?
Winter, I'm not there's no winter sports out here in California like that. So there's no big time skiing or anything like that. So, but I'll watch, like growing up with my mom, we would watch, sounds funny, but obviously like the choreographed ice rink with the man.
Yeah, the figure skating, the ice dancing, all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that bobsled one that I said earlier, where they try to go down as fast as they can on a bobsled or something like that. That's pretty cool.
That's dangerous.
What is that one called?
Dangerous.
Well,
I don't know the name of it.
To me, the luge.
Yes.
The luge. Yeah.
Okay.
Nailed it.
And then in the summer, I've watched Michael Phelps, basketball. But besides basketball, I really haven't. This will be the first year I'll probably actually watch all the Olympics. So keep in mind, I'm 23. My birthday is in 2 days. I'll be 24.
Oh.
And well, Olympics are every 4 years.
Yes.
So in high school, I wasn't really watching track and field. I was all about playing basketball. So. But I'm going to get into that. I want to see what's going on with this track and field. Who's the fastest guy on this planet?
Yeah, really quick, 400 meter. 400 meter.
I didn't even let you finish. I apologize. Go ahead.
No worries. 400 meters and definitely bobsledding. 2 favorites.
Is the 400 meter the speed, or the 100 meter and 400 meter? What?
400.
Well, the 100 meters the dash. Yeah.
So it's a quarter lap.
A
quarter of a lap is 100 meter then.
Correct.
All right. Do I think Fox extends before summer of 2025? No, I don't.
I do. I think
Before?
I think he extends the end of this season.
Well,
That's the summer of. I think he extends
Right.
there. There you go.
Yeah, well, I do, but not before the summer of
Yeah,
2025.
not before. No, not at all. No, he
Right.
extends at the end of this season. No, I think even if he doesn't make All NBA, he's going to, just because we can still offer him the most money, and we showed him we are trying to improve this roster.
Yeah.
To what we can. But he from watching like a couple other podcasts like Gil's Arena, he, by the way, talked so much garbage about what
I
Sacramento.
don't know why anybody would listen to Gilbert Arenas. The
Well,
guy's
he
a
also-
buffoon.
He also
Yeah,
brings
that
guns
and he
into
really showed it
arenas.
in that
Yes.
one. It really pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie. He said Sacramento's a cow town. It's got the ugliest people in America.
He's an idiot.
Those
And I
are
was like-
such original takes. Holy crap!
I
I
said,
swear.
you know
I've
what?
never
He
heard
didn't.
that.
He didn't want to talk about the homeless rate out there in LA or the HIV rates out there or how the gang violence is really bad out there. It's a pretty dirty city in LA, but Sacramento is so bad. And I know I said what I was triggered, guys. So hear me out. I'm just
Well-
stating facts. If he's stating facts, I'm stating facts too. Look at the stats. I didn't do it.
Okay, I'm not arguing with you, and thank you very much for calling the
Yeah,
show.
thank
It's
you,
good to
guys.
have you
Yeah.
on. You have a good night, okay, buddy?
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Shay.
Thank you.
Happy early birthday.
Appreciate all the questions. Thank you.
Definitely. So, if we've talked about our favorite Olympic sports, what's your least favorite names?
Many of them are my least favorite. I shouldn't say. First of all, here's my biggest problem with what's happened to the Olympics. There are too many sports
Yes.
that they have made into Olympic sports that shouldn't be
Yes.
Olympic sports. And I don't have a list to be able to talk about it, but there are times when I'm watching the Olympics and I'm like, what the hell is this? That's an Olympic sport? It's just it's gotten too saturated for me.
It devalues the Olympics. Because
Yes.
if anything is an Olympic event, then it's just kind of like the Guinness Book of World Records, I guess.
All right, I'll tell you what I think is absurd to have in the Olympics. I think having golf in the Olympics is ridiculous.
Yes, I do not disagree with you there. I just heard a case the other day for both competitive eating and professional wrestling in the Olympics. Are
There
you
you go.
kidding me? What are we doing? What are we doing?
Now, back when I was growing up, Olympic boxing
Oh,
used
boy.
to be
Yes.
one of the best. You had Sugar Ray Leonard. You had all of those great fighters where boxing was boxing, and that was must-see coverage when it was Olympic boxing. And again, I know I'm old-fashioned. I liked it when the Olympics was totally amateurs. I am not a fan of the professionals now being in the Olympics. That's why you have the NFL or the NBA and the NHL, and I'm not a fan of that. Like what happened in 1980 with the United States hockey team Miracle on Ice will never ever happen again in the history of the Olympics, because now they've allowed professionals and now you have the NHL players. And again, the greatest sporting victory that this country has ever had was the United States Olympic hockey team in 1980. And that will never happen again because of now the rules have changed, allowing professionals to participate in the Olympics. Another Olympic sport that it makes no sense to me is tennis. It's sandwiched in between Wimbledon and the US Open, right? Well, Olympic tennis, I'm not watching Olympic tennis. And I love tennis. I've been watching a lot of Wimbledon. I watch tennis all the time, but Olympic tennis, Olympic golf, really? Like Olympic golf, come on.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a little too much to choose from, definitely. Just another tournament at that point. But to your point with the boxing, I've heard some legendary stories from people that lived those days watching those matches.
It was phenomenal. Someone said, I remember Oscar De La Hoya when he was boxing in the Olympics. Exactly. I mean, it was great. The Olympic boxing was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. It really was.
And boxing today is fill in the blank.
Unwatchable.
Are you surprised it's still around? I thought the UFC was going to take it out.
The biggest problem with boxing is they don't have one governing body.
Mm.
And if they had one governing body, boxing would be so much better. But boxing in 2024 is so different than when I was growing up. Night and freaking day. I always tell the story when Ali fought Frazier at Madison Square Garden in the Super Fight 1, and we were all on the school ground in grade school, and everyone was talking about it. Boys, girls, teachers, like we were all talking about it. The girls were talking about it, right? The non-sports fans were, no, I'm telling you, the girls in our class were talking about Ali and Frazier, okay? In 6th freaking grade. I'm not exaggerating. It was unbelievable.
No, I believe it. It's still talked to this day. Those were fights back then. Now it seems like, and I don't want to put a blanket statement out there about boxing, but the big fights seem to be more spectacles than sports.
Talking about Rulon Gardner in 2000. Yes, it was unbelievable. You're right. Here's another one talking about, some of the great Olympic moments. I remember the one year where Steffi Graf pulled out of the gold slam or the slam in 1988, winning the gold slam and the gold Olympic gold medal in Seoul, winning the Grand Slam, not the gold slam, the Grand Slam. Steffi Graf, one of the great women's tennis players of all time. But here's the Rulon Gardner in 2000. That was unforgettable. It was truly amazing. There's been a lot of tremendous things that we've witnessed, but boxing's gone downhill. All right, you got your King's Court tomorrow at 2?
Yes, indeed. We wrap up the week, which means we open the show up to all of you. So get in here. Grant, we had 9 people on the screen at one time last
I love it.
On Friday. Yes, it was a party.
You know what? I love that. How great is that?
It was very
awesome.
fun. Yeah.
That's
so
good.
make sure you stop by, and yes, Haunted Horse will be in studio in the King's Court.
I will check that out. If I can't watch it live, I'll go back and watch it at my leisure, but I'm definitely going to check that out. It'll be the most beautifully enhanced, technological savvy show that I've ever seen on YouTube.
He had a couple goofy looking guys too.
To everyone else, thank you very much.